Solberg. Oh, sorry, it was just the recording notification. I'm thrilled to be presenting my paper today on the complicated relationship between sleep, social media, and mental health. It is a literature review, and without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so starting off, sleep is an incredibly important aspect of physical health and mental well-being, and especially in adolescence. So it's, yes, no surprise, as you've said, Maya, that this is a very hot topic today. But specifically what I wanted to study is how screen time and social media has an effect on that, because those seem to be also becoming far more pervasive and sort of prevalent in today's society. So the aim of this research paper is to investigate the relationships between adolescent sleep and pervasive forms of screen time, such as social media, as well as what effects they can have on adolescent mental health. So as for methodology, this is a literature review. So literature was compiled from various sources across Google Scholar. Keywords were used such as habitual checking, frequent use, as in with regards to smartphones, you know, the urge to pick up a smartphone, even during bedtime hours, can keep a lot of teens up. So that was one search term: mental health, attention span, sleep, academics, social cognition, adolescent, and social influences. As for some literature review, a term I use in the paper repeatedly is delayed sleep phase preference, which essentially means that some adolescents are biologically inclined to stay up late and wake up later, even outside of external influences. So even outside of you have to stay up late for a game or a certain extracurricular activity, it's just certain teens are biologically predisposed to go to bed late and wake up earlier than just normal people. So, it doesn't help that many schools nowadays are starting super early, and then, your full day is packed full of extracurriculars and you barely have time to go to bed at a reasonable time. And as for previous studies have explored delayed sleep phase preference and other ways sleep deprivation has been caused among today's teens. However, there is a need for more concrete research, which I will get into in the conclusion. But essentially, the content of the paper is this: do adolescents get enough sleep? Current research has established that the answer is no. And cited reasons would include the aforementioned delayed sleep phase preference, external factors such as school extracurriculars, and naturally occurring tendencies for adolescents, varying sleep patterns within the age group. And what that essentially means is that I found through my research that apparently even within the range of adolescence, which is about 14 or 13 to 17 years old, even just within that range, there's biologically a sleep pattern can vary a lot, which makes it very hard to predict in terms of society and where it would be appropriate to go to bed or wake up. As for adverse effects of poor sleep, and essentially why this is such a big problem, is there's a lot of different factors. Cognition is the first one. Cognition is important in teens as it is any human, referring to their ability to complete basic tasks, learn, comprehend, etc. And sleep deprivation has a negative effect on cognitive performance and focus, and even emotional processes in the brain. For example, sleep deprivation has been associated with increased amygdala activity, which is a part of the brain that is associated with emotional processes. And this may be why a commonly cited symptom of sleep deprivation is increased irritability, because your emotional centers are more stimulated. So that's just one effect. Another adverse effect is mental health. Numerous studies pointing to anxiety, even bipolar disorder, also depression, psychological distress. All of these are tied to basically any amount of sleep deprivation could lead to these symptoms. And it actually exacerbates them because, many teens are aware that sleep is an issue, and, you need to get around 8 to 10 hours is what is the standard for most web articles. Basically, most health databases recommend 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night, especially for adolescents. So what happens is they'll get anxious about these things, and then that causes them to get less sleep, and it's just a vicious cycle. So and that sort of ties into another adverse effect, which is risky behaviors, violence, alcohol, marijuana use. All of these are tied to also sleep deprivation. And as for what screen time and social media have to do with all of this, there is, I found, a difference between screen time and sleep time and quality, as in both affect sleep differently. But a common limitation of all of these studies is they don't really determine the type of screen time that is being displayed. So you can't really quantify. It's only quantitative. It's not really qualitative. So still, as for different forms of screen media, basically studies have shown, if I can, to here, basically, the gist is that TV and video games, first of all, they did separate it based on gender. And what was found is that teenage girls were more likely to suffer these adverse effects that were mentioned earlier, as in terms of depression and anxiety, just from screen time and sleep deprivation in general, but especially social media. And what was found is that boys did not experience the same like degree of these disturbances, and that's likely because of the, you know, the forms of screen media that are more likely consumed by each group. So basically, this study highlighted that basically greater than 2 hours amount of time spent on social media resulted in a significant increase in depressive symptoms and an increased chance of even self-harm for girls, while in boys, there was no significant correlation with social media use. Interestingly, for neither gender, there are associations to gaming, texting and emailing, and TV and video, implying that social media is the paramount damaging screen media source. As for conclusions and wider implications, so of course, the primary conclusion of this study is that the myriad of negative health effects of poor sleep are exacerbated by screen time, both through its effect on sleep as well as the direct effects that screen time has on mental health. As we saw earlier, social media is very harmful more often than not. So there is more nuance, however, I found among these studies. So differences among gender, while it was somewhat explored, very few studies actually managed to sort of, they very few delve into that difference. I feel like as terms of future research, that's definitely one thing that could be built on. As for other limitations, as many of these studies are a few years old, a couple of years old at this point, even that with how fast technology is progressing, in the modern age, you know, there's completely new types of screen media that are basically available to us, and especially adolescents. So new forms of media like TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, all these short form content, these have not been addressed in any of the studies that I found in my research. So that's definitely one way that this could be built on in the future, is delving into this. As for how it can be addressed, it's a very difficult situation because societally, we have systems in place that, you know, require one to go to bed at a certain time and wake up at a certain time. So despite the biological necessity of sleep deprivation and, you know, getting enough sleep, it's very hard to change, you know, the current institutions we have in place, such as schools or job start times, extracurriculars, etc. However, as more research is done, there's a hope for a better understanding of the constantly evolving intersection of adolescent sleep, screen time, and social media. Hopefully, there will be an increased emphasis on sleep hygiene in education so that this can be built on in the future. Anyways, thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here today to present this, and I hope you enjoyed.
Wonderful. Thank you, Edvard, for talking to us about that. So let me build on what Edvard has said to tell you, you know, what other than a research like something that Edvard has done, how could that be built into a whole profile, hypothetically, right? So imagine that you were Edvard and you did a project like this about concerning mental health, social media, screen time, all of these things. branching out from this academic research, you can actually launch things like, let's say you can petition for later school start times. You can speak to your local congressperson to see whether you can adjust school start times that will correspond to, what was it, the phrase that you used, delayed sleep phase, right? That
Yes.
Edward said, correct, that some people naturally need to sleep later, get up later, etc. I think some of you may have read that in some parts of the world, they did manage to successfully do this to let kids go to school later, and they have noticed significant improvements in attention as well as academic performance because kids are getting more sleep in the morning. Most adolescents don't tend to be early risers, and that's just their natural sleep pattern. And so perhaps our schooling system should, fit that better. So that's an example of the kind of work that you can do combining this kind of academic research. You could petition, lobby for legislative change. You could also probably launch a project if you're interested, talking about the impact of screen time on mental health. You could teach people mindfulness techniques. You could teach people how to wean themselves off, say, doom scrolling addiction. These are all potential projects that can branch out from that. Why am I talking about all of this? Because it means that obviously it's very beneficial for you to engage in these kinds of activities. But from a college admissions perspective, this would form an extremely cohesive profile, because not only would your research and academic mentorship be on this subject, it would be further combined by other actions that you've done, building on what you found in your academic mentorship, in order to further push the cause. So when you apply to college, using this as your central, I guess, profile image that you're trying to portray of yourself. Let's say you call yourself that I am a strong sleep advocate. All right, that's your central theme of your application. And here are the various things I've done to show you that this is truly an issue that I care a lot about. I've done research on it. I've lobbied for legislative change. I've sent around a petition. I've directly reached out to teach other kids in my community about the importance of sleep, how to get off social media, stuff like this. So all of this together builds for a super comprehensive profile that makes it very difficult to say no to a candidate like you. All right. So more and more, I'm trying to using this showcase as well as in my direct interaction with students, I'm trying to show them that it's beyond just one piece of research work or one project that you did. You really should try and think of your activities as part of a holistic picture of what are you trying to show about yourself. All right, cool. Great.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you
that's
so
very
much.
helpful. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Edward, for sharing this with us. I believe that our next speaker is already here. Daniel, I see you. So we're going to switch gears a little bit from paper to project. So Daniel's going to talk to us about his Hope for Hearing project, which is, if I may, wildly successful. So Daniel, would you like to throw up your own screen share?
Okay, got it.
Also, I think this is the first time that I've actually seen your face, Daniel. Hello. Thank you for joining us, and you have the con. Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to oh, that's the wrong one. Oh, there we go. Can you see it? Okay, yeah, I just want to comment on Edward's project first because I also struggle a bit with screen time. So I just want to say I've learned a lot from your initiative and research. So really appreciative of that. Yeah, so talk about a bit of my own project, not research focused, but rather initiative focused. Hope for Hearing is a project that me and my friend started at the start of this year. And as you can probably tell from the name of the organization, it does have something to do with hearing loss. So what is hearing loss? Why should I care? Why is it very predominant in our society, actually? So, me and you, all of us, we all really like to listen to music, go to concerts, attend social events, make friends if you're really extroverted, all these things. And a lot of us don't realize that this is something we take for granted because a pretty big portion of our society actually struggles with hearing loss, which really impacts the way that they can be able to fully enjoy going to social events, listening to music, or even performing music. So some statistics, right? So 3 in 5 Canadians will experience hearing loss, some degree of hearing loss at some point in their lives. And so this really, their ability to be able to listen to music, perform music, go to social events, go to concerts, and not only is it just hearing loss, and some people just think, oh, it's just hearing loss, right? It's not that bad. But hearing loss is actually a propellant for many, many bigger issues, especially mental health issues, right? So having hearing loss, right? Let's say you have hearing loss and you're like kind of cut off from everyone. You go to a social event and you can't really communicate with everyone. You don't know what's going on. You're kind of lost and confused. People try to talk to you, but you just miss 60%, 50% of your words. You just don't know what's going on, right? This feeling of isolation as social beings, as human beings who are social creatures,
This feeling of isolation is very, very detrimental to our mental health. And so often research has shown that often leads to much worse issues, such as depression, anxiety, and for older citizens, it very often leads to mental health issues such as Alzheimer's and dementia. And so, for the other statistics I want to show is, for those of you that perform music, it's 4 times more likely for you to develop hearing loss in some point of your lives, especially when you go professional. And so that's definitely a really big issue. First person that comes to my mind when I think of that is Beethoven. When he was in his later years, he actually developed very, very strong hearing loss, and that had a very, very detrimental effect on his mental health. One Before I move on, the other thing I wanted to touch on hearing loss is that it's very often overlooked. And what I mean by that is there's a very strong stigma surrounding hearing loss within our society. What I mean by that is, how there was like in the past few years, we made a lot of progress regarding like removing a stigma around mental health, right? But that stigma surrounding hearing loss still very much exists. And that's also why 3 in 5 Canadians will experience hearing loss. That seems like really, really outlandish statistics. But the reality is, if you have hearing loss, you often don't want to get officially diagnosed with it, or you don't want to talk to people about it or be open about it, because people often perceive those with hearing loss as being less capable or less proficient, as being the odd one that they can't communicate properly to. And so even if someone has like hearing loss, they don't want to get officially diagnosed with it because they don't want people around them perceiving them as someone less capable. And that's why hearing loss is actually very predominant in our society. It's just that a lot of people in our society go undiagnosed. And so leading on back to Hope We're Here. Oh, never mind. I forgot about this slide. I remember coming across this quote doing my research, and I remember how it was very impactful to me. Kind of like Helen Keller is this very inspirational, motivational speaker, if you know about her. She is a very motivational speaker, but she's also like completely blind and completely deaf, which is pretty crazy to me how she was able to actually get an education. But as someone who is both blind and deaf, one of the things she said is that, blindness separates us from things. You can't see things, that's just things, but deafness separates us from people because now you can't communicate with other people as well as you could have. Okay, back to Hope We're Hearing. So what's our mission? Our mission is very simple. We raise funds and awareness for those with hearing loss. We raise awareness regarding the issue, and we try to remove the stigma surrounding hearing loss. How we have done this, we've done this through a variety of ways. Since the start of 2023, we've kind of just started as like a little club at our school. We collaborated with Sunnybrook Hospital, which is the second biggest hospital in Canada, their cochlear department. So all our funds go directly to the cochlear department for research and development into hearing loss. So for the first half of the year, we just did a lot of snack shops, a lot of small initiatives at our school. We talked about it at our assemblies, at our music nights. We brought in a very renowned surgeon from Sunnybrook Hospital that specialized in cochlear implants to talk about the effects of hearing loss. And so at that point, we were around a $4,000 mark. Over the summer, me and my friend, we did a lot of work regarding expanding the outreach or scope of Hope We're Hearing as not something just limited to our school, but something that was able to be featured across schools around the world. So we reached out to a lot of people, networking, I guess. And so what we did was we were able to start a chapter system. So people at other schools could represent Hope We're Hearing by starting their own chapter at their school, recruiting their own team as if they were like the club head, and then organizing their own initiatives at their schools or own initiatives in their cities. And so far it's been very, very successful. Everyone's been doing very well. We're at $6,000 mark. Yeah, so since the start of 2023, within 11 months, we raised $6,000. The goal is before the end of 2024, which is around in just a year, we're trying to get to $30,000. This is our next statistics approximation. I kind of collected like the numbers of around how many club members there were at each school, and there's around 160 students currently involved with Hope We're Hearing across Canada, whether they're like an executive at their school, whether they're a club head, or whether just like a general volunteer. Lastly, we've got high schools across Toronto, not Toronto, Canada. Most of them are in the Greater Toronto area, but we do have one in British Columbia, we have one in Nova Scotia, we have one in New Brunswick, and we also have one in Guelph and Ottawa. So yeah, I guess my final message is, oh, never mind. Oh my God, I keep forgetting about the slides I made. Oh my God. Okay, these just some of our other milestones. At the start, January 2023, we collaborated with Sunnybrook Hospital. Over August, we did apply to one of this other funding challenge called Youth Impact Challenge, where we had to make a small video submission regarding what Hope for Hearing was, our mission. We won $1,000 in funding from there, which was, I guess, it's a lot, but when you consider we have like 160 students across Canada who all need shirts and flyers and stand-up posters, then $1,000 does not seem that much all of a sudden. September, we reached out to a lot of organizations and we got a call back from Canadian Hard of Hearing Association. We met with their national director and now we're officially partnered with them. So we act as a distributor of their resources regarding hearing loss, and they provide us with mentorship and guidance regarding how we can grow our nonprofit as an actual officially established federally registered nonprofit, CHHA. And in October, one of our chapters in Waterloo featured us at a TEDx Laurier event. So Laurier is a university in Waterloo, and they were actually able to speak at TEDx regarding Hope for Hearing, which I thought was really, really impressive. Like this was something that was completely initiated on their own. Yeah, so my final message is you can join a team as well. We're thinking about going global and not just limiting ourselves to Canada. So far, it's been very, very successful. Everyone at all the chapter heads at all the schools have done a lot regarding promoting awareness, promoting raising funds. And the other thing, touching on university applications, I think this is a really good opportunity for you to demonstrate your leadership. Not only demonstrate, it's a really good opportunity for you to be able to lead a team if you haven't had the opportunity. Lead a team to achieve a common goal of raising funds and awareness. Learning how to organize initiatives, learning how to collaborate with people, learning how to, be at the top of the structure and just lead a team to achieve something. And so there's also a very good opportunity to provide very quantifiable evidence of leadership if you're talking about university applications. For example, you can say within the time span of 2023 to 2025, I led a team of 20 and raised $5,000 at this school through this and this and this and this event. And so, it's very, very concrete evidence of your leadership abilities and your abilities to raise funds. And so, yeah, I guess that's the end of my presentation. If you want to join a team, you can just reach out to me or reach out to Maya. I'm sure she'll provide you with my email address or something. But yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniel. And so right on time. So perfect. Guys, this is a super impressive student organization. So for all of you listening, so you know that in the Leadership Innovation Lab, we try to help students create these kinds of projects. So this is a very good example of what is within the realm of possibility. Hope for Hearing is nationwide in Canada and going global. And all of this came from someone who's like the same age as you. So, I think it's more a question of having the grit and the determination to believe that something like this can be possible rather than it actually being that difficult to do. And I think that I see Daniel nodding, so I think that that's been his experience. So if you feel that something like this is not doable, you feel a little bit apprehensive, intimidated, like how can something like this be possible? Here's the proof. All right. So if you need help on how to get there, that's what I'm here for. But I need you to first believe that something like this is doable. All right. Cool. Thank you very much, Daniel. We will move on to the next item, which is an academic paper. So we actually alternate between papers and projects. This way, everyone stays more engaged. So we have Gloria with us here already. Gloria, I see you. Gloria is going to be talking to us about the ethics of dementia, which is a very interesting topic. And I remember reading your paper myself, and I thought that I had to share this in the showcase with everyone because, firstly, it's a difficult subject to deal with, but diving into the ethics behind that is an interesting angle to take. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over the mic to Gloria. Gloria, do you want to throw up your own slides?
Yeah.
It's coming on.
Is it working? Can you see?
It's working. We're good.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Go for it.
So, hi everyone, I'm Gloria, and I'm going to talk to you all today about my research on the ethics of dementia. So I split my presentation into 4 sections. The introduction, where I'll basically give an overview of why I initiated this research and why I think it's important. And the discussion will basically just discuss my findings of Alzheimer's and its associated like pharmacological treatments and the ethics of prescribing patients with or without capacity, and basically the decision-making process that comes with it. So, and the analysis will bring together all the information I gathered and give my own opinions and evaluate the burdens of pharmacological intervention. And lastly, I'll just conclude my research and summarize my findings in the conclusion. So for the introduction, so I wanted to find out about the ethics of dementia, and I consider it a really important research topic for myself, as I personally have family members suffering from this common disease, and through it I hope that the decision-making process for prescribing drugs with like a lot of adverse reactions will become more transparent for other patients and their families. So I thought the best way to answer it would be reviewing primary literature reviews, as I don't have access to that research and can't conduct my own experimentation. So I focused my research evaluating the risks, burdens, and like the benefits of pharmacological intervention of dementia within basically the context of the British National Health Service, so the NHS in England. Yeah. So for the discussion, let me first introduce you to the idea of dementia. So it is defined as the decline of mental ability severe enough to interfere with daily life, including the decline in memory, reasoning, and like thinking skills. So Alzheimer's is a type of dementia, and it accounts for around 60 to 80% of dementia cases and affects like an estimated 850,000 people in the UK. So it is very common, and it's not a normal part of aging. It can cause symptoms in memory loss and problems that really do interfere with daily life. And so it is a disease for all, like aimed at old people, and is most usual for people over the age of 65. And I think it affects more women than men. So currently it is a progressive condition with no cure, and however there are medications to relieve and slow down the progression of the disease. So it is a focus for future research, as because of the aging population, the condition is getting more and more relevant. So there are 3 main types of pharmacological intervention treatments targeted to the disease. So first off, it's galectamine with the brand name Ramnal. So it is an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor, which basically works by breaking down the substance of acetylcholine in the brain, and it is a chemical that helps nerve cells communicate with each other. So the treatment is basically targeted with patients with symptoms of mild and moderate Alzheimer's disease. It's proven efficiency in improving cognitive behavior, appetite, and like activities of daily living, global functioning. However, the adverse reactions are also quite mild, including like nausea and loss of appetite, and occur in only 20% of patients taking medication. So that is quite rare. And in comparison to other treatments, it has quite a quick recovery time, as patients usually get better 2 weeks after taking the medication. So next up is Mementine. So it is another treatment, but this is also targeted at patients with moderate to severe Alzheimer's disease. So it is suitable for people who cannot take galectamine. So it works by decreasing abnormal activity in the brain by blocking the effects of an excessive amount of chemical in the brain called glutamate, involved in brain function, such as learning and memory. So it basically helps the ability to think and remember, and may slow the abilities, slow the loss of the abilities in patients with the disease. However, it also cannot cure Alzheimer's, and it can or prevent the loss of these like abilities in the future, and symptoms will also get worse with the medication. So adverse reactions are more temporary and include like headaches, dizziness, and constipation. So this is the most recent drug. It's called the lecanemab, and it's still in its like phase 3 clinical trial. So it is an amyloid beta directed antibody that targets amyloid, which builds in the brain of people with Alzheimer's. So it is more so for patients with a mild cognitive impairment or mild dementia associated with Alzheimer's. So it is currently the most successful drug and is proven to slow the rate of disease progression by 20 to 30% after 18 months of treatment in patients with like early symptoms. So the most common adverse reaction is infusion related reactions, so including like flushing, chills, fever, rashes, and body aches. So it is another adverse reaction is amyloid relating imaging abnormalities with edema or fluid formation in the brain. So the adverse reactions may be more serious in comparison to like other treatments. So studies with lecanemab also have shown substantially lower rates of adverse reactions than other drugs, but since it's such a new drug in the market, not as much research has been done on it yet. So there are obviously different ethics surrounding prescribing patients with and without capacity. So capacity is defined as the ability of an individual to make an informed decision free of coercion. So it emphasizes on the respect of patients' autonomy as the central premise of the concepts of informed consent and shared decision making. So it also supports patients in their decision making process to give consent or refuse medical intervention based on their values and information provided by clinicians. So a patient is basically free to give, have like patients assumed to have capacity is free or to give or withhold consent. So a very important point is that the ethics of prescribing patients without capacity should adhere to the Mental Capacity Act, which is established in 2005, which allows patients to without capacity to use an advance directive, which means that they can basically enable an individual to influence their course of their care at some point in the future. So this is done when they had capacity, so they can use this method to plan for the future. And this basically becomes effective when the patient loses capacity, so they basically are able to control their care for as long as possible. However, this does not confer the power to give or withhold consent, but it does confer the right for the donee to be consulted. So an individual can refuse all life-saving treatment, but it is important that they do not have the right basically to demand for the right to die. So clinicians registered with the General Medical Council, which is a council in the UK, basically have to adhere to the ethical standards to make sure that decisions made are the patient's best interests, especially because it is very important for like a disease like dementia and Alzheimer's. So the GMC's 7 principles of decision-making and consent help doctors meet the standard of ethical principles that underpin good practices. It emphasizes that all patients have to be involved in their decision and their treatment to make as informed decisions as they can. So the exchange of information between doctors and patients is also essential for a good decision making. So the benefits of a treatment may prolong life, improve a patient's condition, or manage the symptoms must be weighed against like the burdens and the risks for that patient, as we know a lot of pharmacological drugs have their adverse reactions, so it's difficult to determine if it is right to be used for a patient. So this is basically a 10-point pathway for the best interests of decision making. So I'll quickly go through it. So it's firstly establish what is known for the patient with consulting and to see if any important information is missing, and then also considering ethical and legal considerations that arise with regard to clinical decisions, and also consulting with family members or carers to establish a broad agreements on next steps, and to also, a very important thing is to basically make sure that no assumptions are being made, especially nothing about age, appearance, or race that can be discriminatory, and to make sure that all parties communicate with each other properly on a regular basis. So also identifying the risks, benefits, and burdens associated with the proposed course of action, check that alternate courses of action could be applicable for the case, and consult guidelines and seek legal advice before proceeding, and try to ensure that current known patient wishes are being respected. And once a decision has been made, make full notes on it. So this, you can see that the process of decision making is quite elaborate and needs to be very important to make sure that it is in the best interest for the patient. So I'll go into my analysis. So I'll bring all the information together and evaluate the burdens of pharmacological interventions. So pharmacological interventions are designed to help delay the functional decline, but do not alter the course of the disease. So adverse drug reactions are very common and usually occur to up to 90% of patients with AD, and have a substantial impact on both patients and caregivers, as this is like a very long journey, and it can also be like, it can cause a lot of distress on all parties involved in it. So it is argued to be unethical to treat AD patients with a medication due to their highest modest efficiency, cost, and usually very little improvement in the quality of life. So we will go into burdens for each treatment. So galactimine is a duocholinergic treatment that improves cognitive behavior and delays symptoms for caregivers and symptoms and caregiver stress. So it is basically the most widely prescribed drug, and however has the most highest rates of treatment discontinuation and side effects. So it was also reported that around 46% of galactimine treated patients have gastrointestinal adverse reactions, and it is also extremely costly, of around like $12,000 annually for a patient, which is a lot of money for like a normal family. And however, in comparison to other treatments, its effects are usually more clinically relevant, and it shows around 2/3 of patients who receive the medication are judged to have improved or remained stable for 6 months. However, its side effects are also less severe, with only 92% of adverse reactions being mild to moderate, and only like 12% being serious. Therefore, it's relatively like more successful in slowing down the progression, and also decreases the patient's need for care. However, it's not completely effective, as the quality of life will still decline. And so scientists are currently looking for like better treatments to replace it. So memantine is also like another pharmacological treatment for AD, and it shows small improvement on cognitive function, as like no significant differences were observed by the addition of the treatment. So its open label phase, which compares and gathers additional information, also shows that no effect on the underlying progression of the disease, and often the rate of the change in patients over time until shows the rate of change in patients with moderate to severe AD accelerates over time, and until like a stage of very severe disease is reached. And it was also very expensive, costing around $1,800. So, but however, it shows the best profile of acceptability, but comes with serious risks if it is not taken as prescribed. So this can be argued that the risks outweigh the benefits, as it is also can lead to a very quick deterioration of the quality of life, and a significant burden on patients and their families, and a considerable cost as well of the drug. So lastly, lecanemab is deemed the most successful of the 3 drugs and is currently in research and most likely to lead to a clinical, like slowing of the clinical decline in AD. So its phase 3 clinical research has reported that the rate of cognitive decline involving patients have slowed the rate of like 27% of patients, which is quite a substantial and outstanding result. And it has also lowered rates of adverse reactions with 21 of patients who received lecanemab having incidents of adverse reactions. However, it has the most severe, as it can lead to very serious conditions of blood vessel leaking and also localized spring swelling and bleeding in the brain. It is currently the only drug that is not approved by the NICE, which is a institution in the UK. So patients who only enroll in the clinical trial will receive it, and the costs are not covered by the NHS. So, and it is extremely expensive, around like $26,000 per year in the US for just the treatment alone. And the cost, however, it is important to remember that the cost for these medication only accounts for 5% of the total cost of care for Alzheimer patients. So all patients in the UK have the right to choose to use pharmacological treatments that would increase caregiver stress and time in the nursing home placement. So in the UK, NHS covers the cost of both galactamine and memantine treatment with tax payments. However, it doesn't cover the social care costs, which is very important. So the cost of dementia is currently £34 billion a year, which works out as an annual average cost of like £100,000 per person with dementia, which is like obviously a fortune. So 2/3 of the cost is paid by people with dementia and their families by usually selling the homes of patient, either in paid care or in paying for private social care. So to conclude, through my research, I've discovered 3 main dementia treatments, which are galactamine, memantine, and lecanemab. So the ethics of decision making ensure that it is the best interest of the patients, and patients with capacity have the right of decision making and refusing treatments. Whereas like patients without capacity can use advanced directives to basically influence the course of treatment for as long as possible when they lose capacity. So I thought this was very interesting for me because I was able to understand and like better experience the harrowing decision-making process that patients and their families have to go through. And pharmacological interventions are very expensive and may not even be effective, as it can always lead to symptoms getting worse with like lots of adverse reactions. However, without the use of treatment, the condition will continue to deteriorate and will also lead to a nursing home, which also costs a fortune, basically. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Gloria. That was super
Thank you.
detailed. No problem. So, guys, it may have gotten a little bit technical at certain points, but this is a hallmark of quality if you're doing this kind of research paper, right? So if you're looking at publications, if you're looking at, really getting a high quality, high caliber academic research in, this is the level of detail that you will need to get to, and this is the kind of analysis that would be expected. All right. So, Gloria, well done to you.
Thank you so much.
I think that you needed a little bit of time to cover what you had to cover. So
Sorry.
No problem.
Thank you.
We have Andy here with us, who's going to talk to us next about his project, Lace Up Culture, which is interesting because it's about sneakers, guys. So go for it, Andy.
All right, thank you so much. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, go for it.
All right, thank you. All right, so this is Lace Up Culture, also known as Look. This is by me, obviously. And just like Gloria said, this is basically, not Gloria, just like how Maya said, sorry about that. It's about basically my idea of trying to make the sneaker world more apparent for everyone and make it probably more widespread than it is right now. So our mission So obviously this was a kind of like organization founded by me in this year. And I'm trying to help people understand how to get around the sneaker world and even how to make some money by trading sneakers with one another. As you can see, with the logo and also with the motto down here, it says, "Step into the sneaker world where passion meets style and discover sneakers and beyond." So basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to help people understand kind of what it means to like understand how fashion and sneakers kind of work together, and also trying to break those limits, not just like being able to trade sneakers, but also trying to have more community inclusive events and also trying to include more diversity and representation within our own events with this organization. So instead of just trading sneakers, instead of just having another one of those regular type of like sneaker events, sneaker organizations, maybe like a store, we're trying to include more real life and current events and problems in our society incorporated into kind of like what we're trying to do, into like trying to make an impact for local communities and communities around the country. So here are 3 objectives for our sneaker organization. So our first objective is to give information and advice about the sneaker world. So obviously, like when it comes to having an organization like this, it's obviously important to give information about the sneaker world because it's so important for people to understand the information, because the sneaker world is incredibly complex, it's intricate, there's too many parts to it for a regular person to handle by themselves. So by us giving information and steps on how to get around the sneaker world, it's really easy for them, and it was easy for me at least, in order for them to kind of like understand what it means to make money, understand how it means to like just get around in general. The second objective is to update and post about new sneaker drops. So this is very important because we plan to at least update the public or people in our organization about these kind of sneaker drops, because in order for people to actually understand about the sneaker world, in order for people to make money, people to actually like make connections by having these sneaker drops and by understanding like, oh, I need to get these sneakers or I don't need to get these sneakers, it's really important for these people to like save their energy, save their time, etc. And then our third objective is to offer money-making techniques from these aspects. So obviously money doesn't mean everything, but it's just a really good perk of being part of the organization, because obviously in the sneaker world today, maybe you've seen this on TikTok, you've seen this on social media, being able to make money from sneakers is a really big deal. And you might see pictures of people who have like rows and rows, like hundreds of rows of just the same sneakers, or different sneakers, whatever it is. And these are just some of the people that we like to call like resellers, and sneakerheads in general. So in addition, we will also introduce a new face of rising trends in fashion and clothing. So as you can see on the right with the picture, I believe that's Playboi Carti, who is actually one of my favorite rapper artists. And as you can see, he's rocking the Air Jordan Chicago 1s. So we strive to create a close-knit bond with people of similar interest. And additionally, we will also help the community outside of the sneaker world, like I said earlier. So here are some of the obstacles and approaches that we basically face so far and we plan to face in the future. So obviously one of the most probably apprehensive kind of obstacles that we might face are limited releases. And this is mainly because with limited releases, it's a very complex situation, because some sneakers might be released a little bit later, some sneakers might be released like earlier, and it's really hard to manage like how we're going to be able to track down all these sneaker releases. And also in general, when it comes to these releases, a lot of people, especially people who are resellers, people who are hype beasts, they like to take over the sneaker market. So they like to try to buy everything, and then not allow other people, or they try using bots or some kind of like AI generated system in order to buy all these sneakers, which means that we as an organization can't really access these kind of releases. So we're going to really try to focus on that specifically. And also in general, it's expensive because sneakers nowadays can cost anywhere from say $100 to $50,000, which is quite crazy, because imagine a $50,000 shoe, that's like the cost of a car. I could be rent for like an entire year. So that's why it's also really expensive to work with the sneaker market. And then diversity and representation, obviously, because we're trying to include more like ethnic backgrounds, or trying to include more socioeconomic backgrounds, and also trying to represent that throughout organizations and throughout the communities like around the country. And then also a lot of fake reps. So what are fake reps? Well, basically fake reps are just like the equivalent of fake sneakers. So fake sneakers are obviously like one of the most horrible things that we've ever seen in this planet, because fake sneakers do not give any value, and they also don't have any of the similar attributes of regular sneakers. And it's really important, even though people might say, oh, fake reps are just the same thing as real sneakers, are made in the same factory. Well, actually, in fact, when it comes to making the same factory, they use less material, and also their value goes down, because usually you could say like the shareholders of the company, they're not trying to have these fake reps being sold. So which is why the market value has gone down so much. So here are some of our teachers and resources that we've actually reached out to. So recently our organization attended a school club fair, which is my school actually, where we received around 50 responses to our club form. But other than that, we also reached to 100+ people across the country, across communities from New York, Los Angeles, Houston, I believe San Diego, all of those big cities. And we've also found many teachers on campus, and also people around actually the country in general, who are very interested in supporting the club, and I made future plans to partner up for investments, supplements, etc. So here are our main platforms that we use so far. So obviously social media is probably our best one, the biggest one. Right now we have an Instagram, and we also have a TikTok. So right now we're trying to post like sneaker releases. I'm trying to post just like regular content on social media because it's so big these days. And we're also trying to set up a Facebook and a Twitter, which are coming soon. But right now we're mainly focusing on our Instagram and our TikToks. In addition, we also have a website, which is still in development, but this website is mainly for like not only just having sneaker releases, but also just regular information about what it means to be in the sneaker world, kind of our sole purpose, our mission statements. And then probably we're going to have like events being scheduled on our website in order for people to meet up, for people to like sell or trade sneakers. So it's also going to be like an online platform for people trying to like connect with each other and try to build community, try to make that close-knit bond that we're trying to receive. And then our main hope is to mainly spread by word of mouth, social media, obviously, and then through school-wide events at my school, and trying to reach out to local communities from that, like minor sneaker conventions and also clothing drives. And we hope to increase all of our marketing of Lace Up Culture by 30 to 50%, at least in the next year, so then we can actually have some traction and some development within our online platforms. So currently, even though we are a newly made organization that started in a small high school, we are beginning to introduce the sneaker world to neighborhoods and cities. So far, we have held events such as SNU donation drives, mini sneaker pop-ups, and partnerships with other school clubs. And all of our sneaker donations, for example, go to many different like community and volunteering kind of services, such as the Inland Valley Hope Center located in Pomona, California, which is actually really close to my school. So actually, for example, with these donation drives, I remember like last year actually, in 2022, we set up a couple of boxes around my school, just for people to like donate any clothing, mainly shoes, because we partnered up with the Inland Valley Hope Center in order to bring more like shoes, sneakers, not necessarily expensive ones, but just ones in general. So then people who are less fortunate than us can be able to access like at least some kind of clothing for their own lives. All right, and in conclusion, Lace Up Culture is more than just a sneaker club. It's a vibrant community that helps people understand what sneaker world is about. And through the sneaker world, we're trying to create more close-knit bonds in communities. We're trying to create more ideas of being able to include diversity and representation. And we're also a source of knowledge and a platform for personal growth. And if you'd like to hear more about Lace Up Culture and its effects, here are some ways to get involved with us. So firstly, you can organize events around Los Angeles or around the country, like in New York or Houston, wherever you live. And under the name of Late Subculture, you guys can just organize your own events just by having like, regular kind of like sneaker pop-ups or like even donations, whatever it is. Donate sneakers, obviously, and or clothing drives, and also spread the word of mouth about Late Subculture in your community. So we're really just trying to, get a lot of like marketing kind of out there, kind of like spread a word of mouth. Obviously, we're not like a for-profit organization. We're just trying to make the community better, just one step at a time or through one sneaker at a time. All right, that's it. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to email us at info@latesubculture.org. But yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Andy. I think this is very inspiring, and I specifically wanted to include this project to show everyone that it really can just be about something that you're just obsessed with, and that's fine. So if you're obsessed with, I don't know, the first thing that comes to mind right now is like say Hayao Miyazaki, because I recently rewatched Spirited Away. If that's something that you're obsessed with, go for it, make that your project. Okay, so it really doesn't have to be some noble like United Nations SDG cause. If that's not what you're interested in, that's fine. All right, not all projects have to be like world saving. It can really just be something that you enjoy very much. All right, cool. Speaking of saving the world, we do have a project that is somewhat world saving coming up next. This is the last student project we have for today, and we are running a little bit behind schedule. I do apologize to everyone for that. We have Victor here with us today, who's going to tell us about the Green Society, which is also an extremely successful student-run project. So go for it, Victor.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen. Okay, you should be able to see my screen now. So today I'll be talking about the Green Society. Our slogan is Embrace Green, Inspire Change, and we really do believe in this. So let's get started. So our mission is our organization is often known as TGS. We like to call it TGS for short, is a government registered and student-led nonprofit organization founded in 2022, so just a year ago by myself. And we're essentially dedicated to spreading environmental awareness and incentivizing action through our free workshops, which we call #TheClimateClassroom and annual environmental writing contests. And both of these events are held on the international scale with participants from over 5 different countries. So we have a very big impact, which I'll also go into later. So our objectives are free environmental workshops. We aim to educate young students about our world's many environmental issues that typically would not be taught in the traditional school curricula. So we try to center these topics of the environment around certain things that teachers do not teach in the school curriculum, because even though students do learn a bit about climate change and things like that within the school curriculum, we try to go more in depth and do certain topics that are not typically taught. So we also aim to connect students internationally, as all of our programs are offered on the international scale, and we do have students internationally. And we also inspire students, of course, to create change within their own communities. Similarly, our annual environmental writing contests are a way for students to sort of practice what they've learned from our workshops or from what they've learned just in general in school or wherever they might be. And for the environmental writing contest, we aim to provide students with the opportunity to apply their knowledge of the environment in a more creative way, specifically climate fiction. Climate fiction is a genre of basically writing that targets climate change and combines climate change and fiction and how the world might change in the future, how we might see it develop in the future. And this will improve students' creative writing skills. On the other hand, we also provide students with the opportunity to potentially propose their own solutions to our world's environmental issues. And this will help to improve students' critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Once again, this is offered on the international scale. and we have many international students. So we also connect students in that way. And finally, once again, we inspire students to create change within their own communities from the articles that they write and the pieces that they create through this contest. Now let's look at some of the obstacles and approaches that we faced in the past year. So our members and resources. I am the founder and president of TGS, and I started off alone last year. So since then, we've had I've been recruiting a team of environmentalists, educators, and designers who share a similar passion as myself towards environmental activism. And I do have a few qualifications that allow me to further expand TGS's global impact. Specifically, the reason why I chose to do a writing contest is because just a year ago, I received a finalist and honorable mention from the New York Times 9th Annual Student Editorial Contest, which inspired me greatly to start this writing contest because after that, I realized how important writing is and how big of a change it can create. I'm also a semi-finalist of the 2023 Climate Science Olympiad, and many of my fellow team members are also semi-finalists or even finalists. I'm also running numerous other educational and environmental organizations, giving me the connections and expertise to expand TGS. I'm a co-founder of an educational organization which we're partnering with to expand the student base, and also the Starfish Canada, which a few of our members are applying to win an award there, which will allow us to further expand the impact as well. I'm also leading some environmental clubs, which is why this is an environmental organization, and working on a few research projects regarding climate science and environmental engineering. We've definitely faced quite a few challenges here. So many schools were shut down during the COVID-19 pandemic, which definitely impacted our recruitment and slowed it down by a lot, as well as meaning everything had to be done virtually. Also, because our environmental writing contest is being held on the international level, we had some difficulty communicating with some of the international students last year, especially in terms of timing. And last year, I was the only one running TGS, and therefore had to invest significant time and effort into the organization. And we had a much smaller global impact because it was just myself. But fortunately, this year we have already expanded to a team of over 20 motivated students and are hoping to further enhance our team, which is the main reason why I'm here today. So hopefully these QR codes work, but on the left QR code is for our website, the middle one is our Instagram, and the right one is our sign-up form. And our environmental workshops, which is the hashtag the climate classroom, are developed by finalists of the Climate Science Olympiad. So if you we have a link here, but obviously you can't click on it. But if you search up the Climate Science Olympiad, this is one of the most prestigious climate science competitions in the world, which is why we believe that because we have finalists developing these workshops, they're going to be the top quality. And of course, they're inspired by the courses offered on the Climate Science website, which is the website that runs the Climate Science Olympiad. So since 2022, we have recruited a team of over 20 motivated high school students split into 4 different departments. We have marketing, education, outreach, and funding. And our first annual environmental writing contest was earlier this year and was a huge success. We received approximately $1,000 in funding, and our judging panel consisted of 3 members of the Starfish Canada's editorial leadership team, which is one of our partner organizations, a Pulitzer Prize winning American novelist, definitely the most notable judge we had, and the author was Jane Smiley, if you want to search her up, and a few other high school teachers from a variety of schools. And we received just over 40 submissions internationally, which we think is a pretty good start, and we're definitely hoping to increase these numbers this year. So this year, we've already received 200 US in funding for being the most popular organization at the LAL Club Fair, which we're very thankful for. And we've also applied to the IDE Action Global Pitch Competition, along with some other funding opportunities. Some impacts that we had. So we plan to use our acquired funds in a variety of ways. We're going to use them, of course, for the environmental writing contest prizes, because this is definitely a primary motivation for students to join and learn more about the environment at the same time. Donations, of course, to a variety of environmental funds and charities, including the Nature Conservancy of Canada and the World Wildlife Fund. Investments into some green tech companies, although this is definitely a long-term goal, and we're getting some more business members joining our team, and inviting some guest speakers for our workshops, which will differentiate us from other similar organizations. So our environmental workshops are new this year, but we've already also achieved some successes. So our curriculum, once again, is developed by finalists of the Climate Science Olympiad, meaning they're definitely top quality. We already have over 50 international students interested, and I think this number is definitely growing. And all environmental workshops, of course, are free of charge, allowing them to be accessed by almost everyone. We are partnering with 6 different organizations currently, and I'll go into more detail in future of growth. So we're working on advertising our organization in order to recruit more members and potential participants, of course, which is the primary reason why I'm here today. We're planning to host our 2nd annual writing contest early next year. We're also working to increase the number of chapters by recruiting more chapter leaders. And right now we just have chapter leaders from our partner organizations, and we're hoping to increase the number of chapter leaders, not just from our partner organizations. And in the future, we're hoping to partner with even more organizations than the ones seen on the previous slide, such as Google for Nonprofits, some other environmental organizations and schools, as well as Toronto District School Board. And we're also hoping to get some of these partner organizations to potentially sponsor our programs, which will increase our credibility. And finally, we plan to invite some guest speakers, which I talked about before, to our environmental workshops in order to differentiate ourselves from other similar organizations. So in conclusion, we are obviously dedicated to spreading environmental awareness and incentivizing environmental action through our free workshops, which is the Climate Classroom, and our annual environmental writing contest, which allows students to improve their writing skills and critical thinking skills. So if you're truly passionate about making a difference, and there are many ways to get involved with TGS, you can certainly apply for TGS, and I'll display the QR code on the next slide. You can establish a TGS chapter in your school or community, or you can donate to TGS. So here is the QR code for the sign-up link, which is also on this slide. So the one on the left is the website, the middle is the Instagram, and the one on the right is the sign-up form. And thank you for listening.
Cool. Thank you very much, Victor, and congratulations on the massive success of your group. I remember when I first met you in the little program last year, I remember this was like totally nascent, and look where you are today. So congrats. We are running behind schedule, no worries. So I'm not going to drag anymore. So I'm going to hand over the mic to Dede. Dede is with us here today. Hey, Dede, good to see you.
Hi, Maya.
No worries. And so, Dede, like I said, this session is obviously being recorded, and it will be shared with a lot of people who can't make it live. So I think we're expecting a full audience size of 100+ students. Just to let you know, Dede will be talking to us today about corporate social responsibility, which is a very interesting topic. Mostly students ask me, can I get money from that? So that's one of the questions that Dede will be answering in her presentation today. Go for it, Dede. You have the con.
Sure. All right. Thank you again, Maya, for inviting me to speak. Can you hear me? Yeah, awesome. And hello to everyone. So today we'll be speaking on the topic corporate social responsibility. What is it and how can it help me? All right, so let's jump straight into it. Okay, so before I begin, I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. So I am an MBA graduate from the University of Oxford Said Business School in the United Kingdom and hold an undergraduate degree in computer engineering. I have I have nearly a decade of commercial experience under my belt, specifically in the area of business management. And I am currently the executive director of TIAPO, a non-profit organization that merges art and healthcare to tackle the stroke crisis in my home country, Ghana. I'm also an instructor with Scholar Launch, and I also serve on the editorial board of the Scholarly Review Journal. Okay, so by the end of this session, I hope that you as students would, one, have an appreciation of the concept of CSR and why it's relevant. Two, I hope to illustrate how businesses can go beyond profits and consider social and environmental impacts. And finally, I hope to highlight the importance and benefits of CSR for students. Okay. Now, until fairly recently, most large businesses were driven almost exclusively with a single goal in mind: maximizing profits. However, in the past few decades, more business leaders have recognized that they have a responsibility to do more than simply maximizing profits for shareholders and executives. Rather, they have a social responsibility to do what's best, not just for their companies, but the people, the planet, and the society at large. Now, corporate social responsibility, often abbreviated as CSR, is simply the idea that a business has a responsibility to the society that exists around it. Okay, so in other words, when businesses take deliberate action to make a positive impact on society and the environment, we call this CSR. Now, CSR is mostly associated with philanthropic work. However, it is much larger than that. Now, CSR also involves various activities such as ethical business practices, community engagement, and sustainability initiatives, just to mention a few. Now, I cannot talk about CSR without mentioning the triple bottom line. So profit, people, planet. So the 3 Ps. Now, the goal of CSR is essentially to balance profit making with social and environmental responsibilities, aiming to benefit not only the business, but also the communities and the planet. Okay, so we have established that profit making is a key motivator for businesses. A solid financial performance is an indicator of success for most businesses, right? But what if I tell you that research indicates that businesses with strong commitment to CSR can witness up to 10% increase in profits compared to those without such initiatives? Or what if I tell you that over 90% of consumers are more likely to trust and be loyal to a socially responsible company? So with this in mind, why should CSR matter to businesses? One, now, as previously stated, through CSR, businesses are able to create a positive impact on society and the environment. How? By addressing pressing social and environmental issues, and thus contributing to a better world. Also, as previously stated, CSR involves practicing good business ethics, which are important for building credibility as an organization. Now, the third point I would like to make is on sustainable business practices. By operating in a sustainable manner, businesses ensure they meet the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs, which in essence is what sustainability is about. And like I mentioned, this is also a big part of CSR. Enhanced reputation. Now, one way of increasing customer loyalty and trust is through CSR. And this goes a long way to enhance a company's reputation. Finally, CSR drives innovation and problem solving. Now, later in the presentation, you will see how some companies have tackled complex challenges and found creative solutions through CSR. Okay, now the next question I would like to pose is, why should you, as students, also care about CSR? Okay, while you think about this, picture 2 students. Emily and Mia, both with excellent grades, applying to a top-tier university. Now imagine that there's just one spot in the program and both students seem equally qualified to take the spots. Now the only difference is that outside of schoolwork, Mia is also involved in CSR activities, enabling her to embrace real-world experiences. Now, if you could hazard a guess, of the two, who do you think will stand out more to the admissions committee? So, why should CSR matter to high school students? One, because it provides an opportunity for personal growth. Now, using our example, through Mia's involvement in CSR initiatives, she could develop qualities which make her a more rounded individual. But we'll dive more into this later in the presentation. Two, as you advance in your studies and professional life, more and more organizations are seeking individuals with a strong understanding of CSR. Now, by embracing this concept now, you are preparing yourself to stand out in the job market and in your academic endeavors. And finally, it's an opportunity to make a meaningful difference in the world. And we will look into the how you can make this difference later on in the presentation. Okay. So let's look at some real-world examples of companies and their CSR initiatives in action. Patagonia. Now, embarking on a journey towards environmental responsibility, outdoor clothing company Patagonia is committed to minimizing its environmental footprint. Now, their One Wear program encourages product reuse and recycling, while their focus on sustainable sourcing and fair labor practices shapes conscious and ethical fashion. Now, another great example is Microsoft. Now, Microsoft aims to be carbon negative by 2030 and is actively combating climate change and biodiversity loss through their AI for Earth initiative. Now, in the research space, two companies championing CSR are IBM and Johnson & Johnson. Now, the first, IBM, or International Business Machines Corporation, is a multinational technology company that specializes in computer hardware, software, and services. Now, in terms of CSR, they launched IBM World Community Grid, which is a project that lets people like yourself around the world donate their unused processing power of their computers and devices to solve complex scientific problems. Now, IBM World Community Grid is a powerhouse of volunteer computing, connecting global efforts to advance crucial research in cancer, AIDS, and clean energy. Now, by harnessing the collective power of volunteers, it engages the world in impactful projects that drive meaningful advancement for humanity. And then finally, Johnson & Johnson, a multinational corporation that operates in the pharmaceutical, medical devices, and consumer goods sector. I'm pretty sure some of you have used one of their products like their Band-Aid or Listerine or things like that. Now, through strategic collaborations with NGOs, governments, and academia, Johnson & Johnson's Global Public Health Initiative addresses pressing global health challenges by advancing research in global health and infectious diseases. So these are just a few of the amazing things some companies are doing out there. So it's evident, right, that some companies are doing great things in the area of CSR. But what about the companies that talk the talk but aren't able to walk the talk? This is termed greenwashing, and it is essentially the act of making false or misleading statements about the environmental benefits of a product or practice. So the first under scrutiny is H&M. Now, in recent times, H&M has been criticized for contributing to excessive waste, largely due to its fast fashion business model. However, heavily marketing eco-friendly clothing. Also, despite projecting an ethical image, H&M encountered backlash for alleged unethical production methods, including reports of labor rights violation within some manufacturing facilities of theirs. The second is global energy sector. We'll be looking at the global energy sector, so specifically Shell and ExxonMobil, who have been accused of heavily advertising their commitment to clean energy in their marketing campaigns, and yet maintaining substantial investments in traditional fossil fuels. And finally, in the case of Coca-Cola, the company has extensively advertised a commitment to environmental responsibility, even highlighting various sustainability initiatives. However, Coca-Cola has faced scrutiny for the disparity between their claims of environmental responsibility and their role in contributing to plastic waste, including single-use plastic bottles. Okay, so at this point, I want us to take a quick deep dive into the benefits of engaging in CSR as a student. Now, first of all, being a part of CSR activities as a student can bring a wealth of benefits, both personally and professionally. One, engaging in CSR not only offers a sense of personal fulfillment, but it also instills a profound sense of purpose by contributing to the greater good. Secondly, also through your engagement in CSR activities, you build character and cultivate values such as empathy, responsibility, and ethical decision-making. Now, engaging in CSR activities encourages collaboration and gives you an opportunity to improve on your leadership skills. Now, in terms of professional advantages, just like an example of Emily and Mia, engaging in CSR sets you apart and enhances your appeal to universities and employers. Also, CSR's influence on research and innovation cannot be overemphasized. It boosts the impact of your research projects and adds depth and real-world impacts. And finally, it's a great way to expand your network and connect with like-minded individuals and also establish some mentorship connection. Okay, now let's have a look at youth champions driving positive change through CSR. The first youth champion I'd like to spotlight is Alex Lin. Now, as a high school student, Alex Lin initiated a campaign to recycle electronic waste in his hometown of Westerly, Rhode Island. Now, his project led to the establishment of a town ordinance to recycle electronic waste properly, and his efforts expanded to a larger initiative that collected e-waste from all over his state and beyond. The second student activist is Greta Thunberg. Now, at 15, she sparked a global climate movement, becoming the youngest individual to be awarded the Times Person of the Year and also earning a Nobel Peace Prize nomination at only 16. And finally, next is Craig Kilberger. Now, at 12 years old, he co-founded a movement, Free the Children, along with his brother, Mark, who was 17 at the time, and with a group of friends. Now, he led a fight against child labor and grew the movement into a global youth-focused organization operating in over 45 countries. Now, it is worth noting that Craig and his friends gathered over 3,000 signatures advocating for the release of Kailash Satyarthi, who was a child labor activist from India and who later on won a Nobel Peace Prize. Now you can see Craig in the top middle row, somewhere here, and with his group of friends and the signatures that they gathered. Okay, so now how do you as students get involved? One, you could align your research interests with CSR. So for example, say you're passionate about environmental science. Think about how your research could contribute to climate change or biodiversity solutions. Two, you can gain real-world insights and education by volunteering with local organizations in your communities or in your schools. Also, you can participate in CSR competitions such as PepsiCo's Change the Game Challenge, which is focused on CSR involvement for high school students like yourself. And finally, you could take the lead by starting a CSR focus club at school or even a community group, just like Craig and his friends did with Free the Children. Okay, so I'd like to end here and encourage you with this statement. Now, in the realm of corporate social responsibility, genuine change is born not in the words proclaimed, but in the actions taken. Your collective influence shapes a world where CSR is not just a notion, but a powerful force for meaningful change. Remember, action speaks louder than words. Let's endeavor to be the change we want to see. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dede. That was wonderful, super helpful, and super clear. And I especially enjoyed the use of fake people, which I think always helps.
Yeah.
And look at that. I think we are right on time. Largely thank you to Dede.
Yeah.
This recording will be disseminated quite widely, and it will also be made available on our little website. So this, I think that this presentation will reach quite a vast audience. Thank you very much for the helpful insights that you've shared. A big round of applause to Dede here, and thank you everyone here who attended today's showcase. I'm going to stop here for today, and we will pick up again at the same time tomorrow for our day 2 of the showcase. And tomorrow will also be the exciting day when we will announce the winners of our pitch competition, who will be obtaining funding from the Little Venture Fund. So please come back tomorrow to join us. We will start at 9 a.m. ET as usual, and have a lovely Saturday, everybody. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye.